Hello, everybody. My name is Nathaniel Benson. I'm the Global Sales Manager at IT Governance. Welcome to today's webinar. We know we've got people joining from all over the world, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Today's webinar is titled ISO 27001 2013 Transition. We hope that this is going to give everybody a fantastic overview on the new version of the standard and specifically what it's going to mean to you and to your organizations as you look at implementing. I'd like to introduce to you Steve Watkins, who will be presenting today. Steve is the Director of the Training and Consultancy Practice at IT Governance. He's also been around involved with ISO 27001 since the very beginning. He is the author of the hugely popular book, IT Governance, A Manager's Guide to Information Security in ISO 27001, which he wrote together with Alan Calder. Steve's also the chair of the UK ISO 27001 user group. He's a member of the IST33 and IST33 panel, and he's also UKAS's ISMS technical assessor and advising on ISO 27001 transition. We're going to put up Steve's contact details. There you can get him. You should see these on your screen, both on LinkedIn and on Twitter, where Steve is active on both channels. Without any further ado, I'll turn the time over to Steve. Over to you.
Thank you, Nate. So, first off, I'd like to clarify, go through the agenda we're going to be talking about for the next 35, 40 minutes before we get into the question and answer session. So we're going to be considering what the changes are to the 27001 Information Security Management System specification. The change from the 2005 version through to the 2013 version. What they mean for your business. There's some sub-bullet points there that you can see that give you some indicators of where those significant changes are. Right at the outset, the continual improvement process that the standard has been based on from the year dot, the original version BS7799. We'll be looking at how it can, the 2013 version is better positioned to integrate with any existing management framework you already adopt. The requirements on roles and responsibilities, the changing requirements around the risk assessment, and how the increased flexibility of the 2013 version should enable organisations to really maximise the benefit of adopting it and indeed maximise the appeal of the standard itself. We'll also spend a short while looking at the mapping of information security controls and what the 2013 version has in store for us there. I'm going to be suggesting that compared to the 2005 version, there's greater flexibility. It lends itself to integration in a much better manner. We'll be looking at what it means for accredited certification, organisations who wish to use the accredited certification scheme and mechanism to demonstrate to others, and indeed their own stakeholders, shareholders and the like, that their information security management system arrangements align with the internationally recognised best practice. We'll also be talking about the transition and what that means for those that already have 27001-2005 certification, are those that might have it as a personal qualification, or those indeed thinking about adopting it for the first time. The implications of the move from the 2005 version through to 2013. So before I get into the transition issues proper, let's have a look at some terminology and the applicability of this session that I'm about to run us through. So accredited certification, this is where the rest of the content of the session is in the context of accredited certification. So this is where an organisation represented at the bottom of our slide here is seeking a certificate to demonstrate to others that its practices, its processes, its systems, its organisational structure, its arrangements meet the requirements of 27001. Well, as you're probably already aware, or many will already be aware, there's a requirement that you subject yourself to certification. There are a number of certification bodies out there, as represented on the screen, and many more indeed. So they're all around the globe. Each of those certification bodies award a certificate saying that the end organisation complies with or is registered as complying with the standard. But for that to be a worldwide recognised scheme, those certification bodies themselves have to have some commonality in how they apply that standard, how they interpret it, the confidence they have in their auditors to be able to make a certification decision that stands up and is robust and stands up to check and challenge. So those certification bodies themselves are assessed to a couple of standards by their national accreditation bodies. So on the screen here we have a representation of just some of the national accreditation bodies from around the globe. So the few I've selected for this purpose today read from left to right as the American Accreditation Board, then we've got France, Germany, Spain, Ireland, Portugal, and UKAS, the United Kingdom Accreditation Service. The national accreditation bodies have to certificate, accredit the certification bodies, saying that they are their systems and arrangements are robust enough to award this certificate to organisations at the end of the day on a consistent basis. All of the national accreditation bodies sign up to the International Accreditation Forum, which means that they recognise each other's status and the organisations that they accredit are on a par with each other. It also means the national accreditation bodies get to adhere to some mandatory documents and policies and procedures and recognise each other's arrangements indeed. By peer review, checking that there's a degree of commonality across the national accreditation bodies. Certainly in the UK, there is only one national accreditation body. It's the United Kingdom Accreditation Service, and that is recognised, set up, licensed to operate by government. So we've got this phrase, accredited certification, and I'm going to be referring back to this as we go through the rest of the session this afternoon. So it follows from this that a change in the source or the reference standard, 27001 in this case that we're discussing today, means that there's a number of organisations and indeed individuals to which the word transition means something different. So there's the organisations such as possibly yours and certainly mine, IT Governance, as a certificated or registered organisation, we have to go through a transition. But indeed at the same time, the accredited certification bodies, so the likes of Perry Johnson registrars, BSI, LRQA and the others that we saw on that last image, they indeed themselves have to go through a transition to be able to have confidence in their auditors and their systems as being aligned to the new version of the standard. And as I've just mentioned, that means their auditors and indeed for everybody else, auditors and implementers need to go through a transition themselves. So we'll be looking at that and referring to those three groups or areas, possibly four groups of or areas of concern with regards to this phrase, transition. As implied by the agenda, however, first off we're going to focus on the changes to the standard 27001. These fall under the following headings. Initially we're going to be looking at the structure and the implementation process that the standard has hitherto mandated and what the changes are now as to the options for organisations adopting an information security management system. We're going to be looking at the requirements around the scope and the risk assessment, the roles and responsibilities, the resources that the standard refers to and requires, and then finally we'll look at the structure of the Annex A security controls. Right at the outset, this gives us a need to look at the high-level structure. On the left here we have the 2005 version, which I'm sure most of you recognise as having the nice introduction sections right up front, the positioning statement, and then at section 4 it gets into the mandatory management system clauses, 4 through to 8, which set out the Plan, Do, Check Act that we're all familiar with, and the other requirements there. Then at the end of the standard there's Annex A, which provides a set of candidate controls, as we're aware. Well, the 2013 version of 27001 has adopted an approach which is formally referred to as Annex SL. The International Standards Organization and related technical committees have put in position or recognized this structure as being applicable and beneficial for all management system standards to enable adopters of 2, 3, 4, maybe more management system specifications to easily read across from one to another. So whether you're adopting 9001 for a quality management system, 14001 for environment, or indeed 27001 as it applies to information security management systems, they will all have these common headings. And then, of course, for 27001 2013, we have Annex A bolted on the end there, the reference control objectives and controls that I'll come back to and refer to later on. So comparing those two, you can see initially that the areas that have just been highlighted, the 0 to 3 and the Annex A, they seem to read across as being very comparable, very similar in structure. The real difference here being sections 4 to 8 in the 2005 version, moving through to the sections 4 to 10 in the 2013 version. And the question really is, what's the difference there? It looks significant at first pass. Well, let's look at those in a little bit more detail. So here we have a representation of the 2005 requirements on the left, section 4 to 8, and then the 2013 management system specification headings, if you want, on the right, sections 4 to 10. Well, I've just split out section 4 in the 2005 version because there's, as you're all probably already aware, there's quite a number of requirements in there. And if we start mapping those onto the 2013 structure, you'll see that a lot of them map onto these new headings, which are the additions, if you want, to what we've already seen in the 2005 version and those that we're familiar with. So at the very highest level, when you start looking at how they read across, and this isn't a detailed mapping that you of course need to undertake to be able to improve your ISMS or make the transition to the 2013 requirements. But at this highest level, you can see how actually what might appear a lot more requirements, it's a different way of carving up the same challenge. So they're broadly similar, but of course under those headings, that's where the detail is, and that's where the changes are really embodied. So let's start having a look at the specific changes in the 2013 version. Well, the first big change, headline grabbing change possibly for some of us, is that the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle that we've known for years and years as part of the Information Security Management System specification, and indeed many management systems prior to 27001. Is no longer mandated. You can see in the quote at the top of the slide there that the order in which the requirements are presented is not implying they should be implemented in that manner. It's providing the opportunity for organisations to adopt any continual improvement mechanism it wishes. You don't have to start with section 4 and work through to section 10. Quite some flexibility being introduced there, I would suggest. The other change, which might not initially be a headline grabbing change, but we'll look at the consequences of it as we go through the session today, is that the terms and definitions section in 2005 has been removed, and it it just simply now, in the 2013 version, cross-references 27,000 as a standard. Currently 27,000, 2012, of course. More of that later on. The 2013 version of the standard is designed with a view to ensuring that organisations adopting it integrate it with their requirements, their environment, the context of their organisation. This means that the specification requires the organisation adopting the standard to identify the interested parties and their relevant issues and concerns, whether that be the legal requirements, business requirements, regulatory bodies, or indeed requirements coming from anywhere else that might affect the environment the organisation is operating in. The standard suggests they should be integrated, identified and addressed when considering and identifying the scope of the information security management system that you're going to be implementing, how much of your business, your locations, people, processes are going to be included in that scope. I'm going to suggest that for some existing 2005 certifications, certainly, the scope statement may well need revisiting. There's some I've seen which in my personal opinion, may not satisfy this requirement, or at least would need some work to demonstrate to any third-party auditor or indeed suppliers that the scope stacks up to give the assurance that is required relating to the organisation's activities. The other big change in the standard is comes back partly to the removal of the terms and definitions, and partly to do with the flexibility that's been introduced in the 2013 version. The term risk or risk assessment we've all become familiar with, risk being a combination of likelihood and impact. Well, no more. Risk is now defined in 27,000 as the terms and definitions standard as being the effect of uncertainty on objectives. Not quite sure we can plug that into our Excel spreadsheet. Maybe we should read down a little bit further. In 27,000 as a standard for terms and definitions, there's a number of notes that follow on from it. And indeed, it says in Guide 73 and elsewhere, other international standards that are relevant to and define risk definitions and terms, it does state that information security risk is associated with the potential that threats will exploit vulnerabilities of an information asset or group of information assets and thereby cause harm to an organisation. Suddenly some terms and phrases we're familiar with there. So the current version, sorry, the new version, the 2013 version of the standard is no longer about, or doesn't mandate an asset-based risk assessment. However, that note I've just referenced suggests that it could remain. So there's the introduction of flexibility reflected in risk management standards, including ISO 31000, which means you could use workshop approaches possibly, or certainly find a method or approach that more easily integrates into the corporate risk management regime you may already have in place. However, that note suggests, as I've already said, that the threat, vulnerability and asset combination could still hold good, but that might be the perceived as the gold star or the gold standard for risk assessment on information security issues, one might suggest. The other significant difference in the risk management concerns or aspects of 27001 2013 is that it has matured to the extent where it reflects the reality that organizations have or may already be adopting other control sets. There's the standard quite simply says identify the risks and then create or identify controls from whatever source you wish. You can select them from COBIT 5 if you wish, or any other framework, or indeed you could start creating your own Bible of good practice security controls. The standard says you can select these from any and everywhere to serve your organisation and the purpose of your organisation and your objectives. A degree of maturity, I feel, that could benefit a lot of organisations. It does ask and require that once you've identified the controls you're applying, that you perform a sense check and compare it to those at Annex A of the standard. So we're still referring to Annex A to make sure that there are none that are missing. Moving on, the area and focus of management and leadership is emphasized in the standard. Indeed, right at the outset of 27001-2013, there's a clear statement that the adoption of an ISMS is a strategic decision for the organisation, and that's reflected right in the definition of an information security management system that we can see here on the screen. It starts off, the very definition starts right at the outset saying it's part of the overall management system. It's not intended to be a bolt-on or something delegated for escalation only when issues arise. It's meant to be integrated into the day-to-day management and business operations. So the requirements in the standard indeed have strengthened with regards to leadership. It focuses a lot more on performance and the use of the effectiveness and demonstrating the value of the ISMS and how it's aligned to the business, using that to inform decisions and future development of the information security management system going forwards. With regards to terms and definitions, one of the roles that the standard has to date referred to is that of the asset owner. Well, no longer. The asset owner is not described in the management system clauses or referenced in the management system clauses of the 2013 version of the standard. It's now a risk owner. Again, this might help and offer a degree of flexibility that hasn't been available to date. There's also quite a focus around resources and competence, competence and communication indeed being added to the standard and pulled out to a greater degree. Other notable changes in the management system requirements at the very highest level are that the sentence that had to date dictated that auditors cannot audit their own work, that has been removed. However, there's still the requirement to ensure objectivity and impartiality. Preventive action is no longer mandated as part of the continual improvement challenge an organisation needs to rise to, although the principles and the intent behind it remains. And a number of requirements related to communication have been added for both internal and external communications, requiring that the organisation identifies or determines the audiences that need to receive messages, what those messages are, when they should be delivered, and the processes to be used in doing so. The standards, of course, if you're already or looking to achieve certification to the standard, you will need copies of the standard, mandatory resources effectively. So here we have some URLs that we'll be making available following this session to purchase 27001, 27002, both combined in a bundle And of course, as I've already implied, you will need 27,000 as a standard for terms and definitions. 27,000 2012, it defines a common language for information security management systems. It gives definitions for each of the terms used in the 27,000 family of standards, and it provides an overview of information security management systems. Relatively generic, applies to, or as generic as the other ISOs, applying to any organisation of any size, indeed, located in any area of the globe. There's also, if the standards aren't your thing, you'd like a slightly briefer, easier read, then pocket guides and numerous books and other tools that have been in existence for some time are available, readily available for in the updated version for 2013. So here on the screen you've got an example of the Introduction to Information Security in 27001 and pocket guide, and Alan Calder's pocket guide for 27001 and 2, an introduction to the format and structure of those standards. Moving on to Annex A, the final slide with regards to the changes in the management system in any sort of detail. This is the structure now adopted by Annex A of the standard. The controls which are you need to map your particular selection against as a sense check to make sure that you've not overlooked or omitted any controls that your security stance might be relying upon. So the first thing to point out is there are now 14 categories. The security categories that were 11 in total under the 2005 version of the standard. These 14 categories cover 144 controls. I'm just going to mention 3 or 4 of the changes that are worthy of note at this stage. So the first one is A5. A5 in the 2005 version of the standard related to an information security policy. Well, A5 now reflects that there are indeed a number of policies within an information security management system and is structured and worded in such a manner that it applies to all of those. There are a couple of new categories or headings under which controls are ordered, and one of those being cryptography. And indeed the controls under cryptography aren't exactly new. They've been pulled together from the structure that was adopted for 2005. Communications and operations, what was A10 has been split out into 2, so we now have A12 and A13. And finally, supplier relationships has matured to the stage where it's got its own category. Some would say that it's a mapping across from the previous A62 objective, external organisations, but I believe it's on detailed reading you'll find it's somewhat more robust than that. So having discussed very briefly the changes from 2005 to 2013, let's, in summary of the 2013 version, I'm going to suggest that the management system structure has matured somewhat, ready for integration or to ease integration with other standards. And whilst doing so, there's a degree of flexibility offered by the 2013 version, which lends itself to adoption more easily applied or adopted within organisations to align with their existing business arrangements, their existing risk regimes, their existing approach to management. So it should be more easily integrated to your day-to-day activities. Talking of the context of the organisation, it certainly more easily aligns to the internal and external drivers. So it's more meaningful for both the organisation and its second and third parties. And of course, there is the worldwide accepted accredited certification scheme. And that's all embodied in just the one standard and the one scheme, ISO 27001. Well, having spent 15 to 20 minutes describing some of the changes in the 2013 version of the standard, let's have a look at what that means for transition and for accredited certification. As I described at the outset, there are accredited certification bodies who offer certification or registration services to end users, client organisations, those organisations who want accredited certification to be able to demonstrate to any interested party that they reflect and comply with the requirements of 27001/2013. Well, for an accredited certification body to be able to deliver that service, it relies on, amongst other things, competent auditors. So let's consider the changes for the 2013 version. That means that the auditors the accredited certification bodies rely on need to be competent for the 2013 model. Therefore, once they are and they can demonstrate that the auditors and the mechanisms and systems the accredited certification body uses, its own management system effectively, is up to speed, up to muster against the 27001/2013 changes and requirements, they are then able to offer accredited certification to client organisations so the transition can take place. Now, of course, the competent auditors couldn't possibly start becoming 2013 compliant, for want of a phrase, until the 2013 standard was published. And so that brings me on to what I am suggesting or guessing what the transition period might mean going forwards. So here we have a transition line for accredited certification, and I'm to an extent predicting, guessing what's going to happen with regards to accredited certification in these slides. So we'll start off, say, recognizing, of course, that the standard was published towards the end of September or the 1st of October this year, and I'm going to suggest that as of the 1st of January, then accreditation bodies will start to offer the service of transitioning certification bodies. If this is the case, it's likely that there no new 27001 certificates will be issued post the 30th of September 2015, and any existing certificates are to have transitioned within a year of there. So according to this timeline, it could be quite possible that you would see a 27001/2005 certificate in August 2016 and it could still be valid. Reality, I'm guessing, means most organisations, if not all, will be looking to make the transition sometime before that. It depends, of course, on where the organisation is. If your organisation already has accredited certification to ISO 27001/2005, of course, then the surveillance audits can and may well still be available. The continuing assessment visit will still be available, potentially through to the 30th of September 2015. However, there is this transition period that is likely to be offered from, say, the first quarter, January, February, March 2014 onwards, subject to when the certification body makes its transition. So if the accreditation body is offering to transition the certification body in 2014, it depends when the certification body goes through that transition period as to when it can start offering transition for its clients that already have 27001/2005. Similar implication for organisations that are seeking accredited certification to 27001. Well, audit to the 2013 version for an accredited certificate is only going to be available once the certification body itself has made that move forward. As we've seen on the last screen, that's dependent upon their auditors being transitioned, their mechanisms, systems, processes, arrangements transitioning themselves, and therefore their accreditation status being transitioned to the 2013 standard. In the meantime, of course, the 2005 certification scheme will still be available, and so there is a period, or quite a period, of overlap there from something like April, May 2014 through to anything as late as September 2015, when there would be this parallel running almost of the 2005 and 2013 versions of the standards. As I've implied and described, that means that the auditors on the right of our screen here, and of course the implementers, those responsible for maintaining and updating information security management systems, will both themselves be required to update their skills and ensure that they're familiar with and competent to apply the new requirements. There are, of course, transition courses available, and IT Governance are providing a one-day transition training course. There's a URL there on the screen which enables people to update their existing qualifications, certifications, and indeed knowledge and understanding, most importantly, to reflect the new requirements of the standard and how that might apply. For those that are not attracted to or have a need to have a formal qualification and are more showing an interest or a passing interest, there are of course other options, and a number of books have been updated to reflect the 2013 standard. The successful, very popular 9 Steps to Success is indeed already available, reflecting the 2013 version of the standard. For those that don't like the idea of reading the book and applying it within their organisation, they may well want to engage a consultancy practice to come and have a look and see how the ISMS is currently performing. Indeed, third-party review is one of the controls, and advise on an action plan as to how it might change, develop, become more efficient and effective in serving the organisation and helping it deliver its objectives. And again, IT Governance has designed and offers a health check and action plan service where we work with you to examine your existing information security management practices and identify where they may improve or need to develop and mature to reflect the 2013 requirements. If you're not yet convinced and think 27001-2013 could possibly be the option, but you need just a little bit more information, then the case for 27001 could well be the book for you. It reflects on the drivers for 27001, the flexibilities it offers, and as I said earlier on, the standard itself recognises that adopting an information security management system based on its requirements is a strategic decision, and so why not pull on this widely respected and recognised source text to inform your decision with that in mind. If you've not already got 27001 certification or trained up, there are of course existing training courses out there, each of which have the 2005 versions, each of which have a module specifically tailored and focused, targeting the 2013 changes and updates. Of course, further courses will be available in due course, and for those that have already adopted or made use of and benefited from the IT Governance Documentation Toolkit that saves considerable time and sweat and tears, we have been told, has been updated to reflect the 2013 version of the standard. and that will be available, I believe, towards the end of October. Our consultancy services, as I've already implied, are alive to the new version of the standard. We have a number of recognitions by various accredited certification bodies, so we're well positioned to help. And I would suggest that if you have a look at the URL there, it will explain how we could maybe get involved. So returning to 27001, the transition, the changes, in summary, well, the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle that we've known to date as a mandated requirement, it is no longer there as such. That's not to say it's not applicable. It could well be used and deployed, and many guidance books, theories, and practitioners, I'm sure, will be singing its virtues for years to come. The hard and fast requirement for an asset-based risk assessment, whether it be the chocolate chip muffin on the screen or, of course, your all-important data, well, that requirement is no longer mandated in the specification. That's not to say that an asset-based risk assessment would not serve the purpose and indeed give you a very robust set of requirements that you need to implement to ensure your security stance is appropriate, but it's not mandated, therefore offering indeed a degree of flexibility, one might suggest, with regards to how you not only go about implementing your information security management system, but conducting the risk assessment and possibly integrating it into the wider corporate risk management regime. And there's the strengthening, of course, of the performance and measures of effectiveness requirements, not just for controls and groups of controls, but indeed in the 2013 version for measuring the effectiveness of the entire ISMS. I'm sure that will deserve a few furrowed brows and maybe some a few sleepless nights. How do you demonstrate your ISMS is effective? Hopefully through positive indicators. For those that are truly interested in the transition and certification, well, the timescales have not yet been confirmed. However, as I said earlier, I'm predicting that the certification to the 2005 version may well still be available through to the 30th of September 2015. Certification to the 2013 version could be available as soon as within the first few months of 2014. And of course there's a big overlap there. It depends on the individual accredited certification body and the service you're looking to adopt. So if you've implemented a project aligned to the 2005 version, the good news is you've got time to achieve certification to that established system that you've been practicing for some time. And then you can make a transition following that. Here at IT Governance, we've made a few papers that you might want to refer to. There's a slightly different approach and tact for each of them. The most comprehensive, I would suggest, with the detailed transition requirements, would be the one at the bottom of the screen there. Please do reference them and make use of them, but most importantly, of course, don't forget to contact us if you wish to, with regards to queries, questions and the like, with which I think it's probably time that I handed back over to Nathan, who might be ready or about to facilitate some questions possibly. Nathan, are you there?
I am indeed, Steve. First of all, I just want to say thanks very much, Steve. Informative as always. It's generated a good number of questions. We could probably be here for the rest of the morning, afternoon, or evening. We'll just try to pick out a couple of these. And like I said, if your question doesn't get asked, please come back to us. We'll try to, we should have a record of all these questions. We'll try to get back to as many of you as we can. But if you don't hear from us, please come back to us and get my attention, and we'll make sure that we get your question answered. Steve, let me see. Picking out one from earlier on. Let's see. There was questions, obviously, a number of questions about when certification bodies are going to start. I think you covered that.
Sure.
There was a question about mapping the new version to the HIPAA in the U.S. and the audit protocols. Or is there any mapping that you're aware of?
I've not seen the mapping myself to date. The standard enables it. It says you can look anywhere you wish to find a control set or a set of arrangements and apply those. The challenge is, as the question implies, then working out how that compares and translates to the Annex A requirements. Once that's, I'm sure that will be available before too long, probably through a number of web sources. I guess the important thing is then to find one which you trust. Yeah.
Cool. There was a question about whether or not, there were two questions about the FDIS of the standard. I think I've seen quite a few questions that have come into us, people asking, well, what's the difference between the FDIS, what is an FDIS, and when will 27001 finally be released? So it seems like there's still a lot of questions out there. So do you know, is there any difference between? Can you just talk really briefly to what an FDIS is and whether or not there were any changes between the FDIS and the final version of the standard?
Sure. Standards go through a cycle of drafting and approval and a number of gateways, and each gateway they go through requires an increased degree of consensus amongst the committee responsible for that standard. I liken it to a popularity contest, but hey, it's not always that case. So the FDIS stage of development of a draft standard, FDIS stands for a final draft international standard, which is pretty much as it implies. It's final, all bar some tweaking or challenges with regards to technical accuracy, terminology, cross-referencing, and the like. So the standard goes through working drafts, committee drafts, final committee drafts, draft international standard, and then becomes published. The final draft international standard, the FDIS of 27001 and 27002, were available for some time and could be purchased. There have been some amendments or changes between the FDIS and the final version. They are not massively significant, bar from the fact that the FDIS is not the definitive standard, which in itself is a significant difference, I guess. I'm talking myself around in circles. One of the changes, as an example, is one of the headings in the standard did say plans in the heading, and the description now in the final version is planning. Maybe not a massive difference, but some of those changes have actually made things a lot more logical, easily understood, and hopefully easier to apply.
Okay, so
I think there was just a quick thing about when 27001 2013 is available. It's available now. It was available from something like the 25th, 26th of September. I believe the formal publication date was the 1st of October, but it is available now for purchase, both 27001 and 27002, and indeed you can buy them bundled together. It's important not to lose sight of the value of 27,000, given the terms and definitions have been removed from both, and hence a lot of the white papers or transition papers I've seen on a number of websites have possibly overlooked the change in definition of risk and a few other things one might suggest. But hey, yeah, the standards are definitely available for purchase now.
Okay, there were a couple questions. I think a lot of people are trying to get their heads around the timeline. It seems to causing a lot of confusion amongst customers amongst the entire community. So there was another question, and this question came out after you had actually given the slide. So I just want to make sure that if you could just clarify again that the certification bodies and the auditors, when are they likely to? First of all, they have to be accredited to the 2013. When do you see them starting that and finishing and being ready?
Okay, I need to qualify my response to this question with the statement that until the accreditation bodies formally publish a transition statement, everything's kind of guesswork. Now, I'm making an educated prediction, effectively. So, reflecting on transition periods and statements for other standards, the accreditation body is likely to start offering a transition arrangement as of, say, the 1st of January 2014. It's then up to the certification bodies to decide when they're ready for that. If they will have a scheduled visit anyway, much like end organisations have a scheduled visit for a surveillance visit. So the certification bodies will have a scheduled visit sometime within the next year or so, at which it is likely they will transition their accredited status to reflect the 2013 version of the standard. Some certification bodies might say, hey, you know what, we're not going to wait for that. We want a special visit to make that transition even sooner. And as I say, I believe that's likely to be available from January onwards. It's only once the certification body has made that transition that they can then offer transition for their clients that hold accredited certification. So I'm afraid there is some confusion out there, and I think there will remain some confusion out there. The message is clear, though, that you can still get and will for some time still be able to pursue and achieve accredited certification to ISO 27001 2005. Obviously, a number of organisations will be saying, well, what's the point in doing that if the 2013 version is already available? Well, at least you know where you stand, and if you've already started your project, you're a long way towards it. The 2013 version, yes, really it's a case of ask your certification body. Each certification body will have its own transition statement. If you already have 27001 certification, they will no doubt be in contact and explain to you exactly what it means for you and the timescales they envisage you having to comply with. Does that answer the question, Nathan?
It does, yes. Thanks very much. There were a number of questions about the chocolate muffin. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go into all of those. It probably requires a webinar all on its own. But there was a question about risk owners. Somebody asks, can a risk owner be only one person in the organization?
It depends on, no, really the risk owner should be whoever's responsible for the risks that are being considered. So, sorry, I was going to start answering that from a different end of the equation, effectively. So, it would, in my opinion, be a very small organisation if you're going to suggest there is a single risk owner. Either that or the risk owner is actually very senior within the organisation, in which case, are they realistically going to have the time, the capacity to discharge all the responsibility and functions required of a risk owner? Probably not. They're going to need to delegate that. With regards to the way the standard uses the phrase risk owner, of course that's not dictating what job title should be, and it's up to the organisation to determine how it segregates and delegates that responsibility. But certainly my reading of the standard is the implication is that there will be more than one risk owner, and it could well be by discipline almost. You might have someone owning the chocolate chip muffins and someone else owning the other muffins.
Steve, will the standardized risk register change? Is risk is going to be redefined on some level?
One of the notes under the definition of risk says that basically assets and threats and vulnerabilities can still remain. Now, the fact that the 2013 version of 27001 doesn't mention anywhere in the mandated management system clauses threat or vulnerability means that there's some flexibility there. From my own angle, I would suggest that anyone who's got assets and threats and vulnerabilities in their risk register, well, that's serving you pretty well right now, I imagine, so I wouldn't be in a rush to change it. If you're introducing a new information security management system or been fighting with senior management to get buy-in to date, then the fact that you've got this newfound flexibility could be the one thing that tips the scales in favour of implementation and adoption of this standard.
Okay, there's a question about the statement of applicability. Is that still going to be required?
Yes, the statement of applicability is still referenced within the standard. It's still mandated as a required document. The documents required by the standard, there's some more flexibility around that in the 2013 version. The statement of applicability is required. The justification for exclusions remains, but the justification for inclusions has been strengthened. So you'll still be required to produce a statement of applicability, and that will need to justify inclusions and exclusions equally.
Okay, still loads of questions to go through. Unfortunately, we've only got time for one more. Again, if there are any, if your question wasn't answered, please get in touch with IT Governance. We'd be happy to get back to you. We've got another event coming up. This one is going to be a live event, as in person to person, as in at a physical location. That's going to be on the 23rd of October for those of you in the UK. You'll be getting, everybody on the webinar will be getting information on this. But that'll be more in depth, more time to sit down and speak with one of our consultants. If you've got any questions about the standard and how it applies to your organization. Like I said, one more question. Before we do, there have been a lot of questions about whether or not access is going to be granted to a recording of this presentation. Yes, we should have the recording available that you can listen to, as well as the slide set. For those of you who are having problems with your speakers, I apologize for that, but you should be able to get access, and it should be relatively, the sound quality should be much improved. Okay, Steve, last question for you. On your 27001 changes slide, preventative action was no longer mandated as a separate requirement. Can you give an example or elaborate on this?
Certainly in quality management circles, the comparison between corrective and preventive action has been debated for years. And basically it's a recognition, the move to drop preventive action is a recognition that actually it's massively integrated into the whole ideal of continual improvement. So corrective action, when undertaking corrective action, you're not only correcting the problem, but you'd be taking a call on whether it's worth preventing recurrence, and that is indeed what preventive action is all about. So by taking corrective action to any perceived shortfall or actual shortfall is effectively covering off the requirements on preventive action at the same time. It's one of the changes that a number of management systems are going through in moving to the Annex SL structure that ISO has formalized and settled on.
Okay, thanks, Steve. There were lots of other questions about whether or not a company should at this point, if they're starting now, should they go for 2005 versus 2013? There are lots of questions about what type of training is available and whether or not IT governance provides accredited training. The answers to these questions we're happy to provide you with. Please give us a call or drop us an email or get us on Twitter or one of our communication channels. We'll be happy to get back to you.
Mate, can I just really briefly give maybe a quick one-word answer to 2 or 3 of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether to go for the 2013 or 2005 version largely depends on the timescale of the project you've got in mind. As Nate says, if you contact us and tell us what that timescale is, we'll give you a more definitive answer than that. Do accredited qualifications. Are such training courses available? Most definitely. Again, as Nate said, contact us and we can provide you more details. There was some reference points in the slides, but I realised I flew over some of those slides pretty quickly. Okay, that was it, Nate. I just wanted to get that in.
Thanks for reinforcing that, Steve. I'd like to thank Steve for giving us his time today. It'd be hard for us to find anybody anywhere who knows more about the standard than Steve. So thanks very much, Steve. Again, I'll plug the events that we've got for those of you in the UK on the 23rd of October. Please, you can find details for this on our website. If you can't, you can email us at any of the email addresses that Steve's put up, or again, any of our communication channels. I'm happy to give you more information about that, or any of the transition and accredited training courses that we have at the moment. Thanks again, everybody. I wish you a pleasant rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, and we will, until next time, thank you.